How many good cops you ever see stop a bad cop from being a bad cop?
They closed that window. They created the scenario where they only had a few seconds to react.
We have a problem that needs to be addressed.
So y'all pretty much, everybody's familiar with this video, right? Everybody know exactly how the video is. Oh, sorry. So I told you I reached out to a few people, law enforcement, and pretty much told them they wanted to join the live to have a conversation about their input in the video. Then I told them what time I was going on, so I'll give them a little bit of time to hop on before we actually go live and start having this discussion. Okay. Invite. Okay. Give them a chance to get on here before we start talking about this video. Jay, what's up, brother?
Hey, what's going on?
How's everything going, man?
Good, busy, you know. Drill weekend, but you know, we spoke yesterday, and yeah, man, I love these conversations. I mean, they're hard conversations, but they, you know, we need to have them.
They definitely, they well needed. They well needed. Thanks for your service, bro. Appreciate that.
No problem.
I
try, man. I try.
Yeah, I was waiting for one. There you go. Just got in. I was waiting for one more guy to come in, and let's get him in. What's up, Tone? What's going on?
What's up, guys? How you doing?
All right. Just for the audience, everybody on the platform right now has 10 plus years. I know Tone has 16 years. He was a detective in youth violence and addiction. He investigated gangs. He burglary detective. He conducted search warrants himself. Everybody know my background. Street enforcement unit, did a lot of drugs and guns, done search warrants, was on a federal task force. And Jay, I don't know your background, so if you want to give the people a little bit about your background, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Did about 5 years in you know, patrol, and then I switched over and I started working at like borough level with schools. So we did everything from mediation, from school fights to you know, kids with guns. I mean, we've done a lot. I've been a part of a bunch of search warrants and things of that nature. So, you know, I basically started on patrol, then went to schools for a while. I think I was in schools for about 6 years. At the, like I said, the borough level. So that's like the town. So we had like, you know, basically over hundreds of kids. Then now I work on the ferry terminal, so I deal with a lot of, I guess, emotionally disturbed people on the boats crossing from Staten Island to Manhattan in New York, and I work in both terminals, and it's really become a huge place for a lot of emotionally disturbed. So,
right.
What was that?
You from the community, right?
I'm from the community. Why?
Right,
It's a
right.
job.
That's good. That's perfect. And, you know, I'm bringing a bunch of resources to the audience so they can understand the platform. Not anti-cop, just anti-bad police. Bad police make the overall community of good guys look bad, just like in our community. The feel because you're poor, that don't make you a criminal. People got to understand it too, but most people ain't from the community don't understand that. So I kind of bring this platform together so we can have a good conversation just to enlighten. If this is not for you, you can turn the channels like TV. There's nothing to debate about. We're just talking and giving our experiences, members who come from the community that actually came back to serve the community, and being transparent about what goes on inside the police department and law enforcement and in the community. So that's what I do here on this platform. I give an unbiased. If the officers was right, I tell my community exactly by training and policy, this is exactly what they're trained to do. Sometimes I might have a personal view about a certain procedures, but I don't give my personal views on this particular platform. I leave that for the audience. My job here is just to inform the community about what's actually excessive, what's not, when we talking about officers training their actions, is it consistent with their training and policy? Sure. So it's strictly unbiased, and it's just for information only. If you don't need the information, then so be it. That's all on you. We're talking about the individual. Y'all both familiar with the shooting that just occurred with the guy underneath the search warrant, the no-knock warrant? The guy was on the couch. He was underneath the covers.
I actually seen another video. That was the first time I seen that one.
Yeah. Yeah, Amir Locke. What is it, Locke?
Amir Locke.
Amir Locke. He was underneath. He was on the couch laying down. He was underneath the covers. The officer. Now it just happened, so I'm only basing what we're talking about on the information that we currently have right now. So the information I have right now, officers were looking for 3 murder suspects. They have been known to frequent 3 different locations. The officers went and got a search warrant for each location. You know how it is. You hit it at the same time, because if he's at one, you don't want them to call the other. So if you got information, you hit multiple locations with the hopes of actually, capturing who you're looking for, who you're searching for. 3 murder suspects. A lot of people were sending me a lot of DMs and saying, I thought they got away with that. There's some exceptions to the no-knock warrant out there in, was it Minnesota? If the individuals were homicide, if the level of the individuals was at a highest alert, they are allowed to do no-knock warrants. But since Breonna Taylor, they did away with a lot of no-knock warrants, but they have exceptions. And these guys fall within the exceptions. They are murder suspects. So when people started asking like, no, I thought they didn't supposed to, there is exceptions, and these guys fell within that. Now, a lot of people were talking about whether the officers was wrong, was right. Now, I know from department to department nationwide, you do have a change when it comes down to certain policies and certain use of force, but deadly force, it's normally it's normally the same nationwide. Either you're trying to save your life or the life of someone else, and there's no other options at the time the officer decides to pull, or he makes the decision to pull that trigger. Never talked to a lot of people all across the United States. I went to Afghanistan and built a tactical police manual with 119 officers from around the country, and we had to compare policies and procedures. It might vary a little bit, but deadly force, everybody was pretty consistent. Before an officer can pull that trigger, someone's life has to be at risk of being lost. So people like to say, well, that's different from here. That deadly force is pretty universal. Now, you got information that these guys frequent this location. The officers make entry, right? It's no knock, but once you get in, you start announcing who you are. You want everybody inside that location to know that you are the police coming through that door. So you don't hear anything until these guys enter. Once they get inside, you start hearing police, police, police. They came upon a subject that was on a couch. He was covered up. They, of course, you know, because when you're doing a search warrant, you're trying to clear every room as quickly as possible. You want to clear one room, get the other room clear. You want to keep doing that as fast as you can for safety reasons. So they came upon a subject that was on the couch. He was covered up. They approached him. I've been told that they kicked the couch. I've looked over it. I can't see that, but it didn't matter one way or me whether they kicked the couch or screamed at him, whether they pulled the blanket, whatever. He came from underneath the blanket with a firearm in his hand. Now, remember, we talk about deadly force nationwide. The officer's perception has to feel that his life or the life of someone else is in danger, and there's no other options at the time that the officer pulled the trigger, right? So if we had to look at this officer's actions and relate it to policy, the officer's actions was consistent with policy, the deadly force policy. It has to be reasonable, the force use. Now, I know we're in an atmosphere where everything is sensitive. Everything is sensitive. Extremely. So we still have to keep in mind that officers are still out here fighting crime and they're still doing the job. And there's times where force is required. Now, we look at this incident, and this is just me now. Everybody on this platform have many years of experience, and everybody would get a chance to explain their assessment of this situation. Now, I'm speaking for me. He comes, and we did it. We slowed the video down. Everybody here have done search warrants. So the people who are not familiar with it, this is happening extremely fast. It's happening very fast. You get the chance to see it slowed way down. Nobody gets the chance to have that option where it's happening that slow. So we pull up. He pulls the covers, and as soon as he pulls the covers, he has a gun in his hand. The officer then decides to use deadly force. Now, when we look at policy, was the officer's force reasonable to believe that he was in fear of his life or the life of someone else, whether it's another officer or someone else there? I believe that it was reasonable. It was consistent with policy, very consistent with policy. Now, I received a lot of messages in reference to, well, the search warrant was bad because the guy wasn't there, and this guy was laying in his own house with his own bed. And on his own couch. I get that. I understand that. Matter of fact, when I sleep with my 40 on my dresser, right at my end table. So if you come startle me, more than likely I'm going to reach for my gun as well. So I'm here to tell you, when we start talking about policy and deadly force, this policy and the use of force will, me personally, when I look at the deadly force use, it's going to be consistent with policy. This was dead wrong. Like, when I say dead wrong, I mean someone's life was lost. And I try to think about how this could have been prevented. And according to the training and policy, I mean, I wish we would have known that the guy was there. I mean, it's hard. I know if somebody ran up on my house, I'm going to grab my gun because you're startled, you're sleeping, you're trying to protect yourself. As far as I know, he had nothing to do with the 3 suspects that they were looking for. But by policy and training, it's going to match. So I'm giving you guys what I believe is going to occur on the incident. Officers' actions were consistent with training and policy. Go ahead, Tone. You want to chime in on what you believe?
Yes, I'll start off. Yeah, first of all, training and policy doesn't mean it's justifiable or it's, how do I say it? It's in accordance of what's right. And the reason why I say this, right? And I've been thinking about this, just based on what you said about you in your home with a firearm, and every American or every citizen has a right to protect themselves in their home, right? Mm-hmm. Now, normally, when there's a no-knock, it's to prevent the destruction of evidence. There's no evidence to destruct in this situation. So therefore, you can make a knock, and I'm listening to, I guess, the others. When I say others, everybody, the family. I'm listening to the attorneys. When you talk about the knocking and giving him enough time to respond, he should have enough spot. Think about this, Joe. You have a weapon in your house. Somebody busts in, and the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna respond to danger, right? He had no chance to respond to danger. Now we're talking about looking for individuals. We're not talking about trying to recover evidence or them destroying evidence, flushing drugs and things down the toilet. So think about this. We have an individual, he's laying in his bed, he's awakened and he's responding to danger.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't feel that the no knock in this situation. Now remind you, are the officers responding to policy? They could be. Is policy consistent or is it applicable in this situation? That's a whole nother situation. But there is a problem. There is a problem.
Let me ask you a question. And I'm going to play devil's advocate because you know I was a union official, right? And if I had to respond to what you were saying, I would ask you, like, no knock warrant consists of destroying property as well as the individuals inside being the highest of danger people. So I want to surprise them. I don't want them grabbing weapons. I mean, I've seen no knock warrants on individuals that was most wanted. And you don't want to give them the element of surprise. I don't want to knock and say police because I want to surprise you. Now you got three suspects, right? That are murder suspects. So I would think a no-knock warrant on three individuals that was murder suspects would be justifiable to get.
Okay, so you're adding another element.
Right.
And I agree. Yes, yes. Okay, so with that said, right, now we have to look at what the information was received. Did PD receive that these individuals, how did he even come up with his address?
Right.
How do they know that these subjects are there? Was anybody maintaining an eye when they went in? And when a warrant was obtained, were they covering the front and the back? We can go into this inside and out. And this is a problem. You just can't say, oh, I got an address, he's there, and go. Is it good police work? And this is a problem.
Right, but Jay, go ahead. Before we start talking or having a conversation about it, go ahead, Jay. Tell us what you think.
Well, I kind of was taken off guard because I didn't I didn't think it was that video. I actually seen another video where an individual, I think, let 13 rounds go. So I think everything falls back to training, number one. And you see sometimes reoccurring things in certain states happen over. And I think a lot of it has to do with policy. So, and I'm really trying to look at it like, I think everybody's numb, right? So police are numb, right? We just, in New York, buried 2 officers, pretty much assassinated. The public's numb for certain things, that they see, what they feel, unjust shootings. Everybody's just at a point where, they're numb and a lot of emotions are involved. That being said, yeah, I agree with you. Like, the policy matches up for what they kind of did, how they handled it. But for me, like, you go on in a search warrant. You have it broken down. Multiple guys go in. Like, what about concealment? You know what I mean? Like, guys moving slow comes up. You seen a firearm, but you were already like on top of him. I would have liked for, you know, them to take cover, you know, as far as the details, how they got the search warrant and, you know, no knock warrant. I think that's a little bit irrelevant to this topic. I mean, it matters, but not to the outcome, because I mean, if it was a knock warrant, do you think it would have been different? You know, if they would have banged outside, you think, I mean, maybe, but it could have still had the same, you know, type of outcome. I just, you know, it's hard to critique someone else that does the same profession as you,
Right.
especially when something doesn't seem out of malice. You know, I mean, like there's something that you see is like, that's just dead wrong, and you know, that's dirty. We don't like it. You know, so it's hard to critique, you know, your own when you feel like it doesn't come out of malice.
Right.
Being said, you know, things go south in our you know, career field, and I mean, it's sad, but I'm with you, Joe.
My brother, my fellow law enforcement officer, who was saying that he think that it was irrelevant based on what I was saying. What I was saying is, all right, so you get information that, all right, there's a warrant being executed on this address. The officer, we don't know if the officer is valid information as who's in that house. Are these suspects in that house? Where did he get the information from? Right? And you could somebody could put your address and say that the suspects are in your house. Don't you find that to be something that is very important or serious? They're going to do a no-knock and kick in your door. You have a right. You're in your house. Isn't that important? I mean, the information, it doesn't matter where the information is coming from. You swear, you testify.
Let me rephrase that. I didn't mean that that didn't matter. I'm just zoning specifically into the outcome. So absolutely, I agree. How did you get the search warrant? You know, who, you know, how many witnesses? Every state does it differently. So I'm not trying to say that. What I'm saying is going in and the outcome and like how it happened. You know what I mean? Let's say if they did knock and if the outcome was the same, I think we'd still be having the same conversation. So I agree with you, brother. I'm not trying to say I disagree because how the warrant matters.
Okay. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me.
No, I agree. No, and I agree with you. I agree with you. You're right. I mean, what happened. Whether it's good police work or bad police work, the officer's dealing with what he's dealing with right there and then, and it's bad. But there's multiple facets of why we have a problem, and how we deal with it. That goes to be unseen, but it is a problem.
Like somebody wrote, it is murder, and okay, listen. I hear what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing, but like you, Joe, I'm playing devil's advocate. But if that department trained people a certain way, you know what I mean? Like you need to look into like what, like you felt that, right? So you leave it up to the officer's discretion. You felt like your life was in danger. He pulled out a gun. Granted, he's allowed to have a gun. It's his house. Once again, I'm not saying that I agree with what happened, because I told you, I think differently. I think I would have taken cover, you know what I mean? And I you know, I think it's too fast. But with their policy, you know, are they going to be okay? Probably, because it's consistent with their policy. And when things go wrong, we have to look at policies. Is it more on the officers, or is it more on the structure that they're working under?
Right.
You hear what I'm saying?
I agree. I agree.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you.
Because you might be justified in policy, but do we got to look at how policy is designed? Because we got an innocent guy who had nothing to do with it killed.
No, I agree.
if you run up in my home like that, I'm going to come to the same fate. Like, I will grab my gun and I will come up like I'm out of my sleep. Somebody's running into my house. That can happen to me. I'm 100% sure that can happen. But now, because it fell within policy, do we look at policy to try to change if this can happen in the future? Because
and that's my point. Like, I don't think people so all this is like, we watch we're constantly traumatizing ourselves, police officers, people, like civilians, what you see. That's why honestly I sometimes I just gotta turn it off, because you see things over and over that it just traumatizes us. Like, and I really challenge people to think about what I'm saying. Like, I'm saying you're training, right, a group of people to react a certain way, and then when something goes wrong, we're saying it's Tom's fault, it's Joe's fault, it's this. You know what I mean? I'm not saying what I believe. I'm saying that's how it is, and it's policy. So if you're gonna say, "Oh, well, he messed up," he's gonna go, "Well, this is the policy." Right? And this is how I was trained. So there's a bigger problem. And that's what I don't think some people, like really, like the public doesn't really get. And I'm not saying you can't be mad at the officer or feel the way you want to. I'm just saying the policies, the problem is you get rid of one officer, right? Or you say he goes to jail for something you disagree with. Okay, somebody said it's murder. What's going to change for the next and the next and the next? If it's the policy, you're saying that this is how we operate. You know what I mean? That it's like going to a restaurant and being mad at the waiter for bad service when they're trained a certain way. Now, we're not talking about something that was crooked. We're talking about something that matched up in policy. We don't agree. We don't agree with how it was done, right? But you're saying that, like, that other people, right, that are doing this job are working under these rules, and since they're working under these rules, that need to be adjusted or need to be maybe looked at, in a bigger in a bigger scheme of things. Like, you want to prevent that from happening again, and that's why I think we see kind of cases more and more similar to that, and I never really see that. I don't know, I guess that approach to fixing the problem.
Right. And what I say about that is that it would have made a difference, me personally, because when I've done search warrants, I was the shield guy, right? Now, if I'm behind a ballistic shield and he comes up, maybe I would have gave more time because I'm behind a shield. So knowing that this is the same environment under the George Floyd, a lot of money's been pulled when it came down to their police department. Can they afford every search warrant, every officer to have a shield on the search warrant? You kind of understand what I'm saying? Like, we got to look at what the real issues are instead of responding emotionally. We look at an incident like this, we go, that's why they need to be defunded. But if you defund the police, right? You losing equipment that could save a life. You losing training that could save a life. But you hear this cry all the time. And I tell people all the time, like, and you, Jay, you would know, right? Because you're dealing with mental illness, right? The basic training academy does not give you a whole lot when dealing with mental illness, EDPs. You need more. You need a lot more when you're dealing with EDPs. Like, you can't take away money, but you expect a much more smarter, more training product on the street as law enforcement. So we got to take how we respond to these things. Because that's the first thing that happens. You get on the street, we start protesting and defund the police, and then you get the elected officials, they want to respond because there's a lot of heat from their constituents. Okay, we'll take money away. And then now you're stuck with a worse product than you did before that.
So,
Like,
it,
it,
yeah,
it's hard. It's a hard balance, and people need to understand that balance. It's
but
like,
we're it's like confirmation bias, right? So you have an idea, and like and like even like not that it bothers me, whatever, but like you even read the comments and stuff. Like we have uh, uh, a certain idea of thinking, right? And we find facts that match our thinking. It's just what we're like conditioned to do now. So it's so hard to really move forward, and it's so hard to like actually learn from things, because it's like, okay, you gotta show the public this, and then police have to, like, you're not born a cop. I became 23. I've been black my whole life. You know what I mean?
right.
I've been in the streets. I've been in the community. I'm still in the community. But it's a different perspective when you put on the uniform. And I'm not sticking up for anything. I'm just saying, like, we really need to have dialogue on both ends, but bigger than a platform that just comes with us three. Like when there's an issue in the military, at least, the Air Force, right? It's everywhere. So there's this uniform type of training. If I go to leadership school in South Dakota, it's the same platform that's in New York. Fortunately, in different states, I mean, it's different training, it's different rules. Maybe if there was more federal funding for certain things, dealing with emotionally disturbed, because you see things like that with emotionally disturbed people. Could they have backed up? Could they have given them space? It's really too hard to break down every police department and every police department's policies on how they like how they engage might be the same, but it's too broad. I wish there was more, kind of like this uniformity and
Like a national standard.
kind of, because then you could say, hey, well, this is the national standard. This is how you were trained. This is, and policies would match with that. But if policies don't match, I mean, it's like fighting an uphill battle.
Right.
Ready to be disappointed again and again.
It would be nice to see more of, and I think that should be public. It should be access to the public of the policy, the use of force policy. Right? And don't get me wrong. If I'm in that room and somebody's bringing up a gun, it's going to be hard to justify that individual. It's going to be easy to justify the officer. They're bringing up a gun. Don't get me wrong. I want to know more information is needed. What information did they receive to know or think that the individual was in that house, in the room? How do we even come to this location? How do we even come to this individual and everything else? Because those are key factors. It is important. If an officer swears, he holds his hand up and swears to an affidavit, a warrant, and gets it, and everything is wrong, then we have a serious problem. And that's been overlooked so long. Now, don't get me wrong, the use of force, I can justify the use of force, right? But can I justify the person being in the house or breaching the perimeter? And that is the problem. That is a problem. A has to match B to equal C. And if we don't have that, we have a problem.
Hey, Tone, let me ask you something. If they found one of the guys upstairs hiding and that event happened downstairs, would it change anything in your mind?
No. They have a lawful right to be there. They got information that's valid, it's legit. They can be there. They can be there. They can be there.
Yeah.
They can be there.
And go ahead.
Now I'm curious, like, exactly, like how a warrant is sworn out. Like, you go some places where, I mean, I would think in New York, it's not that easy. You know what I mean? Like, you got to go before a judge. I mean, there's a lot of legwork that's into it. I think that should be public for the, the public to know, like, what is it? Because yes, I mean, it's a constitutional right? It's your home, right? So what does it take for a police officer to come in, and especially if someone comes into the wrong home? Absolutely. And when things go south, I mean, people want answers. So yeah, I don't see that as a problem. I think that's a good thing. I mean, people should know. And I mean, like I said, policies though. But if we look at stuff like, I'm talking about a community activist, police, whoever, you look at things and you're like, okay, this has a potential for a bad outcome. If you don't fix that, it's gonna happen again.
Right.
And
Right.
again.
Right.
So you know what I mean? My thing is, like, people always fight at the bottom because it's easy, right? Oh, Jay, Allen, you know what I mean? Oh, I did this wrong. You know what I mean? Send them to jail. Okay, let's play the game. But when you look at why I was wrong, when you start thinking about why I was wrong, when you start thinking about, like, or how it happened, really how it happened, I mean, could this happen again? You want to eliminate that stuff. You want to eliminate it to the best of the abilities. Because like I said, it's different when you go in or something is felt like malice and done, and then it's different when I mean, it goes wrong and it is wrong and you feel like it's not. But I think the route to, like, getting results is working on, like, what are these policies? Yeah, you're right. How did they get in the house? What did they need to get that search warrant? How do they know who was there? How, you know what I mean? Like, they're looking for somebody. Why did they think they were there at that time? Was anybody else there? Those are things, I mean, that go into before you even enter, at least from ones that I've been on, before you even enter a location, who's there? Are there potential weapons, especially in the state? I come in New York, so, for the most part, it's hard to have a firearm. It's illegal.
Right.
You work in the States with legal firearms. So, I would like to be, the fly in the room that hears their tactical.
Right. Right. Now, let me ask you something.
Joe, wait, real quick, to his point, right? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
To that point, how do we know whether it's policy or bad policing? We don't know. That's the problem. And before we can make a decision or an assessment, we need to know whether it's bad policing or policy. That doesn't mean that the shooting cannot be justified, but is it bad policing or bad policy? Before we start talking about training and everything else, and more information is needed, because right now, based on what we have, policy could be good, but we can have bad policing. So we really, really don't know.
Right.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right. And because we only could go off of based on the information that we have currently right now. Right?
Right.
As this unfolds coming up, then those questions that you're asking will have more answers to, because we don't know what was the probable cause for those search warrants. All we know is what we're being told right now is still new. We know we had 3 murder suspects that we're looking for. We know there was 3 different locations hit simultaneously. Right. Now, being on a task force, I know firsthand. I've been a part of assignments where, if we're looking for this fugitive, he's been known to frequent these locations. I've been a part of teams where we hitting it 5 o'clock in the morning. You hit the girlfriend's house, you hit the mother's house at the same exact time. So it could, think about it, whether it was bad, whether it was good, the use of deadly force, we all can agree that was justified according to the deadly force policy.
And that's what I'm
right. So now we gotta back and think. Now, is the warrant, so far what we're hearing, the warrant is good until we hear anything different. now it's so sad that somebody lost their life on this particular incident who had nothing to do with it. So, like Jay said, do we start looking at even when policy justifies it, is there another way that we could have prevented killing somebody who had nothing to do with it, but their actions was consistent with deadly force?
And that's my point. Exactly. You know what I mean? Like,
but policy can be right, but police actions can be wrong. We just don't know. We don't know. We really, really don't know without enough information. You know, you look like you're thinking about it. What?
Said.
So, hey, what's up, Jay?
What's going on?
Policy can be in place.
I can't see who the other person
Policy
is.
can be in place, and policy is supposed to protect the officers, the citizens. It's supposed to protect everything, right? But if the officer is doing something
Your
wrong,
Wi-Fi is acting up bad, bro. Like we could barely hear you. It's freezing.
you know
Your
what?
Wi-Fi is
All right, it might be time to cut me out. I see you got somebody else in. If I'm not coming in,
I'm trying to get his viewpoint on it.
get him in. Get him in.
All right. Go ahead, Said. That was
There he goes.
the detective. He investigated gangs, right?
Okay.
And done search warrant.
Nice.
He's in agreement with the deadly force aspect of this incident was consistent with policy. The question is the search warrant now. How do you, he want to know the probable cause in the search warrant. And as of right now, we know that they had a search warrant. A lot of people are making an argument to say that he lied in the search warrant.
Well,
I no evidence to show that it was he lied in the search warrant.
well, that's the first thing that civilians they always do. Oh, I mean, have any of you guys? I mean, Jay, you're in New York, right?
yeah.
Have you heard anything or seen anything that the search warrant was deficient?
This is the first time I've ever seen that video, so it really caught me off guard.
Okay.
Honestly, I thought you were talking about another video that I seen. I don't remember if it was LA where it was like 18 shots when they.
Oh, that's Metro Vegas.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's Vegas Metro.
So when I seen it, it threw me for a loop. So I have no facts on the case whatsoever. I just seen that video. But listen, if you lied on like some people like they lied, look, once again, I believe in investigations. When something goes wrong, right, you got to investigate, you got to get to the bottom of it, right? I gave my viewpoint from like being a police officer, being in the community, both sides. Like, how can we prevent, instead of these things from happening, instead of saying, oh, this is a tragedy, like, how can we fix these things to the best of our ability? You know what I mean? And I look at, policies, and things of that nature. When we start getting into like what happened at the time of shooting, the actual shooting, like you said, policy might justify, but that doesn't mean it was right. But if policy justifies that, then you know what I mean, that protects them, and that's maybe something that needs to be changed, because how do you tell if it's bad policing or bad policy?
Because I see whoever, I don't know if this Joyful Warriors got some police experience.
Yeah.
I'm trying. Yeah, but you could bring them up, and I could beat up on them real quick, because when someone says they lied on something, you have to provide evidence that they lied on the warrant. You can't just say it in the chat. You have to provide evidence that they lied. So Jay, okay, you're current. Joe and I are former. If we have info, so here there's a lot of things. They lied on what?
Hold on. For the record, I just invited Joy to come on and have a conversation.
Are they law enforcement?
We're lying. They lied on the search warrant.
Okay.
We're covering up.
Look,
Right?
if they lied, it's perjury.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
So,
right. I did invite him, but he declined to come up and have.
of course, because it's easier to run their mouth in the chat because he doesn't know what he's talking about. So did they lie? Did the guys kill somebody or not? You see what I mean? So, because this is what the search warrant is for a house. Jay, I don't know how many times you've seen the video. Joe and I've watched it several times. They're looking because what we have to do is we have to paint mindset. So they're going to a house for murder suspects.
Mhm.
They're not looking for people who stole lollipops. So they're going somewhere looking for murder suspects.
Right.
Regardless if you want to agree with the no-knock warrants, right? There's iffy,
Yeah.
but I'm going to tell you this: if I'm going to look for a murder suspect, the three of us, if we're on a special enforcement team, I think it's a no-brainer. We want to serve a no-knock on a murder suspect because we had a situation here where some guys shot some dudes. Jay, they took off. One of the guys was found somewhere else. And the police were getting their stuff together. You know how we start prepping, surrounding, stuff like that?
Mhm.
Jay, his girlfriend said he looked outside, saw the police getting ready, went in the back and started loading all of his guns. Could you imagine the three of us sitting on the front porch doing a knock and notice warrant, waiting for entry? We're going to get gunned down. So
Right.
no-knock warrants are needed in certain situations. So let's get back to this one. So the police officers, from everything that we know, they acted in accordance. They got a signed search warrant affidavit. They issue a no-knock. As soon as they come in, they make several announcements over and over and over that they're police. Now, the guy's laying on the couch. They kick the couch. I don't know. Now, that could be, Jay, if you can say, hey, maybe they should have handled that one differently, I won't give you any pushback on that. The guy gets up. He's got the bed sheet over him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it is clear he has a gun in his hand. Nobody's arguing that, right? It's clear he has a gun. One of the officers perceives a threat. They shoot him. I would say, and I'll turn it back to you, how does that officer not know that that's one of the murder suspects?
No, but look, even take a step even further. When we look at the use of deadly force at that particular case, that particular moment, did it matter? You had an officer who identified a gun. He identified the threat level has elevated so high that his life or the life of someone else. At that point in time, it didn't matter whether he was a suspect or not. You are now justified to use deadly force. Like, it's sad. Their actions were very consistent with policy. Now, I'll be the first one to tell you, right, that I would hate to be that cop. I would hate to be the officer shooting that guy, taking a life, even though he wasn't that guy. It looked like he just took an innocent life. It was bad. It was wrong. You don't even want to take a life, to be real with you, right? But knowing that this guy does not even have anything to do with it, he was just laying on the couch minding his business. But because of the policy and training, the use of deadly force was warranted according to policy. Now, if we back up and we can quarterback this all day long, if we want to change policy on how we do entries, and that's why I tell people all the time, be careful what you ask for, because this is the same environment that George Floyd was killed in. And I know that the elected officials out there are catering to the cries of change. And I'm from the community. I've been victimized by bad policing, excessive aggressive policing. And Jay, you from the community, you might as well too. That's why you joined. But at the same time, right, you got to be careful what you ask for, what kind of change you need. This whole defund the police, I've heard a lot of money got taken out, right? I said, we can't take money away, but want a better product. when I did search warrants, I did a lot of training on the shield, right? Now, I might have gave a little bit more time because I had a ballistic shield behind me, right? Do they have the resources for all the guys to have shields or on every search team? You know, you can't pull money away and then expect a better product. We need to really think about what we're asking for. We want a better product. How do we achieve that goal? How do we achieve a better product? More training. I'm all for the more training. I'm definitely for. And Jay and said, I don't know if you was on or watched earlier. Jay deals with a lot of mental illness individuals. I think that needs to have a lot more training than the basic academy gives you.
Yeah.
You know, the basic academy gives you a very little bit of mental illness training. It's nowhere near enough for you to actually go out and deal with a mental illness.
I learned on the job. You know, trial and error, learned on the job. What words to say, what words not to say. It's unfortunate.
I think it's tough because the issue is there are too many Sean Kings on social media. I just find it problematic. Someone says, do my job, I go, well, explain to me what the X, like I just saw someone goes, well, they hit other houses too. What does that have to do with anything? Jay, I was part of a search warrant where we hit 100 houses at one time. We hit 100 houses because in the city that I work for, we have a very bad gang problem. So we issued several, obviously, search warrants. We hit 100 houses at once. So hitting multiple houses, what does that have to do with anything?
And
I mean,
you're talking with people who don't understand. So it's our job to enlighten them, right? Like, for example, I was a part of a fugitive task force. We was looking for this guy who was highly dangerous. We hit his girlfriend's house, we hit his mother's house, and we hit his brother's house all at one time. But that's the process. You're given you're given this big platform to actually go out and police, right? It's a real complex job at times, right? Now you do it to the best of your ability and you follow the policy procedures on your training. If the officer's done that, and this is exactly, it sounds like what they have done, then if there's a problem with the training, then we need to address that. If there's a problem with how you obtain a search warrant, we need to address that. Nobody should be getting killed.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to take nobody's life. I agree with that. I want to go out and just kill somebody. Like, it just doesn't work that way.
Why would we hit so many houses? Because there's multiple suspects that we're looking for. I mean, I don't know what type of gang problem you guys have where you're at, Jay. Like I said, out here, it's really bad. So if you have multiple people that you're hitting homes on, 100. And the funny thing is, you can look up these operations. You can look up Operation Tampa Bay, Riverside PD, and you'll see the gang problems that we have in our city. So, you know, we're doing these things, hitting multiple homes at once. We don't go, I'm going to hit this person's house one day and the next house the next day, because damn it, I'm probably not going to be there if I know that I'm part of, if I have anything to do with it. You know what I mean? I'm going to be like, well, they just hit Joe's house on Monday. And then, you know, and then they hit Jay's house on Tuesday. Well, damn it, they're probably coming for me on Wednesday. It's just, I don't know, some things just go. So we hit a lot of things at the same time. Yes.
And Sherry been on a job.
Oh, I hear you.
She's 20 plus years. She said, don't forget, suspects move. They
Thank
go to mother's house. They go to
Thank you.
They do move around. I mean, you might have to hit multiple houses at once looking for 1, 2, 3 guys, depending on what you are looking for. Who you looking for?
So,
you know, policing is not perfect by far. I'll be the first one to tell you. There is a lot of gray area. Things is not always set in stone. That's where you hope like common sense comes into play. But at the same time, things like this, yes, some guy got killed and he wasn't the guy that they was looking for. But during that particular process, right, the threat level raised so high that an officer was just, you know, he decided to use deadly force. And according to policy now, was it reasonable that he believed that his life or the life of someone else's? You know, chance to see this video in slow motion.
Yeah.
It happens so fast. It happens extremely fast. He's on the couch, he's asleep. You go and look for three murder suspects. He comes up with a gun. And when we start talking about split second, you have a split second to decide whether I'm going to shoot him or he's going to shoot me. And in that little bit of time, that you don't even have, it's so quick.
A lot of times people don't see, they see the outcome. And yes, they took, like, reading word is like, I hear you. You know what I mean? We're offering both sides. Like, I'm not saying all the officers are dead right. I'm talking about law, what you can prove, what's criminal, what's not. You know what I mean? Like, we can.
I thought that said ER. I thought someone was dropping the hard ER in there. I was like, Joe, you got to get them up out of there.
Yeah, I was about to block.
Sorry, Jay. I was like, whoa, did somebody just drop an ER in there?
I try to let people have their views and try to have an understanding. Not too many people from the community is going to come out and speak. You know, we talk about when it's bad. We talk about when it's good.
It's good, yeah. You know, and
that's just the nature of what we do in this platform. I don't care. I just want people to be more respectful when it comes down to having these conversations. You should try to be more open-minded because you don't know the job. So we're here to actually
should be more open-minded to us because we're willing to talk about it and not offensive way. I don't protect the blue. I don't protect man. I'm talking like as a human being that has experience in this job. So I'm giving like both sides. I'm saying what I think the biggest problem is when things go south, and people that aren't law enforcement should look at that and be like, okay, you know what? This is how we're going to move forward. This is how we could perhaps get better outcomes. Because if you practice the wrong things in medicine, right? We see malpractice deaths skyrocket, right? So what do they have? They have better policies. They certain things are ruled out. You're not going to do this. It's better to do that. And I'm just saying, like, okay, let's say you said all of them were dead wrong. They're guilty. Hypothetically, we're saying they're all dead wrong. They're guilty. How's that going to prevent anything, that same situation not happening again? Because we've seen it. Look at the Vegas one, right? A little bit different. Like you just like you told me, it was like 18 shots. They came in, same thing, looking for somebody. Kid was laying. That was more clear. Kid was laying down on the sofa, just let off the firearm. I think 2 cops were shot, and then they killed him. You know. Right. People still said the same. Some people still said the same thing. Oh, they're murderers. They killed the wrong person. I mean, it's hard. The 2 officers that just died in New York went to the funerals. It was a family job. Supposed to be no weapons. They're going in. As soon as they open the door to the room, they're thinking to talk to somebody. Bullet right between the eyes. So I mean, really understand what police are up against. And I'm not saying side with them. I'm not saying it's okay for something to go wrong. I'm saying there's a way to make it better and limit these tragic incidences from happening. There's a way we can move. Like, how do you, unfortunately, things like this are going to happen, and it's not okay, but they're going to happen. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or do we agree that like people need to look, do you agree with knock warrant? Do you agree with no knock? Do you agree with was there something wrong? Because I don't know. Was there something wrong with the evidence? One person said he lied. Okay, well, if you can prove it, cool. We'll look at it. You know what I'm saying? Right. What led to that? What led to that moment? And when you start looking at the root of the problems, we start coming up with some solutions. And that's really what I want to see. You know what I mean? How do they engage in these things? Or even like you said, right before he pulled the trigger. Right? He's seen a gun. He felt that his life was in reasonable danger, right? We all said, you know what I mean? Of course I'm not there. I don't want a Monday morning quarterback, but I would have liked to take cover. You know what I mean? Because we're going in. There's a bunch of us. You know what I mean? It's a hallway. Boom. Try to take cover. One person. Firearms on the guy. You know what I mean? Yes. Some people say he was startled. Absolutely. But everybody, when you leave it up to someone else's, discretion, it's the rules are kind of broad. So if you dislike the policy, that's what people should be fighting
Right.
against, and that's my point.
So someone's asking, did he know his boys were murder suspects? So
yeah, that's another thing.
Joe, did you hear me going in on the last live that I was on? I don't know if Jay. So
I heard part of it.
But the issue that I struggle with is how often do you not know what your homies are up to?
Oh no, that's very often.
I mean, I would say that the three of us, we know who the people are, typically who are the shooters in gangs. You hear the names, the shooters in the communities. I find it very, very difficult. And I was just talking to Mitch and Possum that you're staying at somebody's house. If I come stay at either one of your homes, I probably know something about you. That you don't know that your homeboys are killing people? And then you don't know your homeboys are killing people, then you're sleeping wrapped up with a gun. There's just a lot of stuff that seems to be a little problematic.
Yeah, but said, there's a lot of times, and Jay, you from the community, you know, right, a lot about an individual, but you don't know everything. There is times where one of my friends got arrested for a murder. I knew him to be just a regular hustler, just a street dude. Like, I didn't know he had that in him. Like, when I was a kid growing up, I'm like, he did what? He said, yeah, he shot him with a shotgun. I was like, yo, this is a kid that lived in my building. Like, you don't know the extent. You know the level of what you experience around him. He was a regular local low hustler. He nickel and dime. He had his fly. Wasn't nothing big. And then he got arrested. And I was like, yo, I didn't see that from out of coming. Like, you didn't know that it rose to that level of him going out killing somebody. So you don't know 100%. But for me, and during this conversation, it didn't even matter. Why does that even play a factor in it? This guy, right, had a gun, right, and he rose. He came up out of the bed, because the argument you're making, right, is why you sleep with a gun, right? Why you sleep with a gun? What normal person sleeps with a gun in the bed, right? Or he was at his couch, like. At my end table, my 40's there. I sleep with my 40. My kids are grown. I don't have to worry about kids. I put my 40 on my end table when I go to sleep. That could have been easily me. They come running up in my house. I'm woken quickly just like that. I'm gonna grab my gun. Like, what the hell? You hear somebody coming in, you think you could be thinking you're getting robbed, regardless of the fact that whether he knew or not, right? The use of deadly force was consistent with the officer utilized deadly force.
Yeah.
So to make this guy to assassinate this guy on whether he knew or not, I think it's just unfair because we don't know what he knew. Only thing we do know that the officers encountered a deadly force situation, and it's very consistent with policy and training. Like Jay said, if there's other factors that we want to challenge, we could challenge the training, challenge the policy. Maybe we have it to where everybody has shields now. Who knows? But the use of deadly force was consistent with the training and policy. I don't know the guy on the couch. I feel bad for the guy on the couch. I've been in some of my cousins' houses in Jersey City where they live in a real bad neighborhood. I've slept with my gun on me just because I'm visiting them. Like they hood was 10 times worse. Jersey City was ill back in the days. So it
still is.
It could have been me. You know what I'm saying? I'd have been reaching for a gun. So I don't know that guy. but it was bad. He lost his life, and it was just bad. He didn't have a shot in the world coming out the covers with a gun in his hand. Whether he had anything to do with it, he knew the guys. His life should have been taken. But because the situation aroused and deadly force was justified, it happened.
It's hard, man. It really is, because it's not like something that's such a clean cut thing. Like, oh, this is wrong. He's as far as it's criminal. It's like that. It's based off of individual opinions of, like, as an officer, I felt I would have handled things differently, or because policy is consistent with what the outcome was. So I mean, I guess when you're talking to, like, the community, like, I some people just think that cops just want to gun people down. Like, nobody wants to I used to have nightmares before I was a cop, like, oh my God, like, what happens if I end up shooting somebody, and I thought they had a gun and they didn't. Like, serious. Like, in the academy, like, I was having nightmares over the same thing, and God forbid, like who wants to deal with that? Who wants to live with that? So once again, not to beat up on, and I'm not defending, whatever, but not to just beat up on the officers or beat up on the person saying, well, why were you in that house, or why were you, how did this happen? And I really, like, there's questions that I have, as far as, once again, like, everybody's a street lawyer. Why were they there? What happened?
Right.
Search warrant, things like that, and policies. Once again,
is it wrong for you to be at somebody's house? Absolutely not. Just like it's not wrong for the officers to execute a search warrant affidavit.
Exactly.
Right. I gave an example, and Mitch is trolling me ever since, because I told him a story when I was young. Jay, I went with a friend who I knew was kind of up to no good, and I end up in a dope house. And so I'm like, guns, crack being made, and one of the guys has you guys know what the Tech 9 is, right?
Yeah.
So that's how old school I go back. So there's Tech 9s in it. And some dudes from LA. Jay, the guy goes in the room, he hands me the gun, he goes, hold this real quick. So, fellas, if you guys were doing that warrant and kicked in the door and saw me holding that gun, and you guys were issuing a search warrant for dope, I mean, would you guys have perceived me as a threat? I've never been in trouble a day in my life. I'm a clean-cut guy. I just went somewhere with my friend, even though something was kind of telling me maybe not to go, but say I'm there. Would you still perceive that same threat? And when you come in that door and you see me in the hallway with the Tech 9?
Anybody holding a gun is a threat in a
threat
trial like that. Yeah. Especially that environment. That environment, you want to be the only one holding the gun.
Absolutely.
So like they're saying, it's tough.
It's tough.
I don't think, well, I'm going to tell you this because I don't want to speak for anybody. I never went 10-8 going, man, I'm going to shoot somebody today. I don't know if either one of you guys did. A lot of times, hey, I'm going to get through the day. Maybe I can make some arrests. Maybe, sometimes you may get in a feeling, I'm going to get into a pursuit. You know what I mean? Let me try, especially if you work in graveyard. Maybe a little bit more difficult in New York because of the traffic, but out in the suburbs, yeah, sometimes, Jay, we might mess around, and in the pursuit, okay, we had some fun, but I wasn't looking to go, hey, let me just go get into a shooting. That's a lot. Like I said, taking somebody's life.
You got to live with that.
Yeah.
Like there was a lieutenant a long time ago, NYPD. It was a mostly third person. He was like standing on the balcony of like outside the windows. I don't know if you've seen in the movies, like outside the windows where you like stairs, like in some sort of like I don't want to say project, but you know, basically an apartment building or whatever. They were trying to get him down. They couldn't get him down. You know, the crowd's instigating, tase him, all this, you know. So they try to tase him and like catch him. Guy ends up falling, second floor, you know, second story, you know, call the ambulance. Anyways, he ends up dying. The lieutenant committed suicide. He thought he was going to go to jail. He thought his family was going to be taken away from him. Who knows what he thought? You know, he killed somebody. Then you got the crowd around him screaming, "Oh, murder, murder!" After they you know what I mean? Like, it's hard. It's hard on both ends. That's why I say intent. I mean, it might not matter for some people, but like I also look at intent when it comes to these things, because it's like, you know, what was the demeanor? Was he overly aggressive? Was he, you know what I mean? Like those things all factor in. Like, unfortunately, we're in a career field that things go south, and absolutely you got to look at all the factors.
How do we correct? How do we write that? Because I look at that and I've looked at it, and I tactically, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what they really did wrong. I heard you say, Jay, maybe some of them could have egressed and got, but I mean, you're right there.
Yeah,
you know,
listen.
You don't know. I think most, you know, you're going, well, I got to engage the threat, right? I can't back up. Maybe I'm backing up and I fall over something.
Right.
You know, I think tactically they did things right. Now you're saying maybe they could have issued the warrant differently. Okay. When my partner got killed, I don't know if you heard this story. My partner got his brains blown on a foot. I couldn't, Joe knows this, I couldn't sleep for a week. They knew, they did intel and knew who the guy was. And they were kind of tracking him. They actually caught him coming out of a Target superstore where he was coming out, boom. Now that he wasn't armed, right? But say if he is armed and now you contact him outdoors and it turns into a shooting. You guys know we're always trying to do things advantageous and minimize the loss of life. So do we try to catch these? And it sounds like it's multiple suspects. So Joe, you've served a shitload of warrants. It's now you're trying to get 3 people. I mean, how, you know, it's just so many moving parts to this. Let's hit a house. They went at 6:37 in the morning. Typical. I don't know, Jay. What time do you guys usually serve search warrant affidavits, or is it just any time that you guys?
Nah, they normally serve it in the morning.
Yeah, we go.
Morning.
You know, sunrise, boom, 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 search warrant, and then we're in. I'd like to hear from you guys. If we're gonna, I don't like Monday night quarterbacking or Monday morning quarterbacking it, but what could those guys have done differently, with the exception of maybe trying to catch the guys out? And now you have created more exigencies because you have a murder suspect who may be armed out in the public.
Could have, would have, should have. Like, I'm not, you know what I'm saying? Like, I can only speak for myself. That's why I'm not, you know, I guess some people don't like that I'm not beating up the officers, but I'm also sympathizing with, I'm also sympathizing with the person that lost their life. I mean, it's tough because you know, you're going into something. Like I said, the cops in New York, they didn't know what they were going into. So, you know, that they were going into something thinking de-escalate. You know what I mean? And end up losing their lives. They're going into something already like, we're looking for somebody that did one of the most heinous crimes. You know what I mean? They're going in and then they see a firearm and they don't know who the person is and they perceive the threat and they chose, you know, he chose to shoot. I would like to think if I was in that situation, not saying that what he did is what he did, what he thought was right, but I would like to think that me,
Hey,
I would have took concealment.
Post Bree's comments, because she wants us to, after he's done, she wants us to explain. She goes, she doesn't think people understand the difference between no knock and knock and notice warrants. Go ahead. I'm sorry, bro.
I would like to think I would have done things differently, but that doesn't. But I'm not going to get on here and bash someone else that didn't do something that was in their policies of engagement correctly, that from what I know didn't do anything in malice or like lying like other people have accused, make accusations. It's just honestly really tough. But me, I would like to think that I'm going in with numbers. I got guns. There's one person we see right now. I would like to think I would have taken cover if I was on the right side behind the door frame, still had guns on them, dropped the firearm, I would like to think that that's the choice that I would have made. But that's the problem. That's me. You know what I mean? That doesn't make someone necessarily wrong, because he's acting in his, it doesn't make it wrong for him. Is he's acting within his policies.
Right.
That's what I said. The root of all this stuff comes down to policies. How, like even the engagement. Think about it. What he perceived as a threat to him.
Yeah.
Walked in, the guy had a firearm, right? He came up. You shot.
Yeah. For me, I'm agreeing with Jay, because I might have pulled the covers instead of kicked the couch, doesn't mean that officer was wrong for kicking the couch. Long as my thing is, and that I say it all the time, if your actions is consistent with policy, because we all can follow policy but handle something differently, but maintain our actions and be very consistent with policy. So you can't say because I would have done it differently, then he was wrong. As long as my different is still in the confines of my policy, then I'm cool with that. It might have, me telling you, say me and you went in, I say, yo, Seth, I'm gonna pull the covers. You maintain your fire on him. So if we pull the covers and he comes up with a gun, you shoot him, right? You take him out. I'm pulling the covers and you pull. So we pull the covers and he's still asleep. We see the gun in his hand. It might have changed the variance, but because that officer doesn't mean he was wrong, because you do something differently. We all can do something differently, but staying within the confines of policy. So I wouldn't say he was wrong. I would not say
you know what I mean? It didn't match for me. Move on, but I'm not. I sympathize with him. I'm not bashing him for because it's within his. It's what he was trained. It's what he was trained to do, and he acted how his training, perceived him, within his guidelines of his training. We all react differently to certain things. There might be somebody where you might think tase, I might think tackle.
Right.
Person might think shoot. You know what I mean? Because they had a baseball bat. Is anyone wrong? Like those? You know what I mean? Those are really the roots to all these answers that I think the community wants to understand. The community hears over and over, oh, well, the cops did this, the cops did that. It's okay. It was policy. And then you see the frustration. But I mean, I'm saying dig deeper. Dig deeper. We have to look at this full circle. And, I would have loved to talk about the Vegas shooting, because that was, like some people on that. Oh, the cops are, they're murderers. All they want to do is kill. I'm like,
Joe, did you Vegas one?
Yeah. I think you showed it, right? Said
I might have. I mean that.
Yeah. I don't think I want people to understand something, right? Deadly force policy, whether you want to believe this or not, officers do not have to wait to be shot upon.
That's what some people.
A lot of people, I see that they didn't even shoot. Like you don't have to wait to be shot at to actually use deadly force. You don't. A lot of people think that, but that's not the case.
I've also been. People will say, "Well, he didn't point the gun at the officer." So I was explaining a scenario to where you could actually, in a training scenario, how you could have a simunition, you could have a gun as an officer pointed at me, and I could have it down by my side, and I would still be able to raise and get that shot off before you would be able to react to me shooting you, just because action beats reaction. People, I think what really hurts our profession is people watch way too much TV.
Yeah, they do.
People watch too much TV. They watch Court and Order, Law and Order. I saw someone in your chat say, well, the judge just hands out search warrants. Like, look at both you guys are like, really? That lets me know they have no idea how hard it is to get a search warrant affidavit.
But here's my thing. Look, I'm not against that idea. Are there some judges more lenient towards nonsense? Oh, I'm sure. You know what it is, though? We work for the community. We're public servants, and you know what it is? When you do the research, like when the investigations come out and you start looking at this judge's track record, that judge should not be a judge very long. You know what I mean? You gotta, like, the community has to go after, if that's the way you feel and if the numbers come out. So like I said, you could be mad at the individual cop all day. People could say, go to jail. Nothing's gonna change. And that's the main focal point. You know,
Joe and I talked about this yesterday. The warrant ends up bad, deficient, then the detective who's in charge of that warrant needs to, he should go to jail for his life. If somebody loses their life in an execution, and I mean, it is like, no, then the person, it's not the officer's fault that served the warrant. But if you and Joe and someone else and Sherry go serve that warrant and it's on me, my ass go to prison for life.
Right.
I don't think that an officer should just be able to walk. I think that my pension should go to the family of the victims, but because I'm on accountability thing for everyone. I don't think that if it was found to be wrong, but right now what people are saying is no, that, just right off the bat, the cops are wrong. People are saying,
you know what it is though, Seth?
But yeah, I believe that if, never happens.
What happens is, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, brother. You see, so let's say you see one thing that went south and you're like, this is dead wrong, 100%, right? Because we've all said, I disagree, this is wrong. We've all said this is criminal on certain things, right? But what happens is when you watch TV, like, you look at numbers and you think, like, cops kill Black people, like there's hundreds and thousands, tens of thousands of murders a day, like just on the minority community. And when in fact it's not, but you're watching visual, you're watching film, you're watching things. So you believe what you see, just like, cops that, or other people that watch a certain thing. You believe what you see. You see it's embedded in you. So, I mean, once you see one thing that looks kind of one way, then you see another thing. Like, it doesn't matter if the two videos are totally different, because the Vegas and this one were they were different enough. There's still enough people, the majority of people, that still believe like it was the same exact, like the outcome, like what they believe, if the police officer was guilty or they're criminals or the murder, were the same exact thing. And I think that's also a problem. Like, people, like, it doesn't, like, you're watching the same stuff happen again and again. It's just differently. Like, we can't decipher, we can't distinguish, like, what's, what we agree with, what we don't. It all becomes blurred and blended together, and people end up going against or for things that, like, they should be individual thoughts. Like, well, this one was a different situation than this one. Like, and it's just happening more and more. And it's kind of sad, so it kind of makes you feel like, it's pointless, because people are going to believe what they want to believe sometimes, or let their eyes see whatever they want to see.
Right. But let me explain to your girl. She said that it seemed like, I'm coming off my anti-police stance, and what she needs to understand, and my followers understand, right, that this platform, right, is called police brutality, right? Police brutality matters. So I target bad policing. So when you see me here, I'm pretty much targeting bad policing unless my audience want me to actually talk about an incident. And if the incident is not bad policing, then I'm going to say that. This incident right here with these officers, it's very consistent with training and policy. Me being a instructor, me being a vice president of a union, I'm very familiar with the use of deadly force policy. So you'll see me on this particular incident be unbiased, just like I am, and explain what it is. You got to understand something, right? My whole entire life has been, yo, you have to pick a side. I take pride in not picking a side. You know, when I'm a part of the blue, they like, yo, it's us or them. I come from the community that is being most affected by bad policing. So I went in to actually change that narrative. So it was never a them versus us. He says, oh, you're anti-cop. Oh, now you're not. No, if you put a bad incident up, you will hear me explain why I believe that the incident is bad, because the officer's action was reckless and wasn't consistent with training and policy. So don't get it twisted. If you want to see me talk more about positive policing, right, turn to Court TV on Mondays. I got a Monday night slot. I don't get the videos, so they give more police videos that officers are consistent with policy and training. That arena, they give me, I was just telling the producer, I was like, can you throw one bad apple in here or something? But yeah, you're going to see me on Monday nights giving a lot more assessments on police that follow procedures, follow trainings, real consecutive, or going out serving the community. So it's not that I'm changing, it's this particular incident, the officers was very consistent with policy now. Now, I tell you, when I'm giving my assessment, I'm not telling you my personal views. I'm telling you what policy, training, law, it's up to you to take that information and do what you want with it. I'm not here to debate. Me and Seth talk about this all the time. You got these social media warriors and try to prove a point. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to educate the community on what I have learned. And you do whatever it is you want, because when it's all said and done, I don't think I'm going to change somebody else's viewpoint.
Boom.
I have your knowledge, and you do whatever it is you want with that viewpoint.
Hey, so I want to add this real quick, because obviously, you know, Joe has brought me onto his platform, which I'm very appreciative. People don't know, but Joe and I probably talk or message each other every day, right? For the most part.
Yeah.
We have discussions every day. And one thing that I've learned about Joe is I do think he's fair. That's why I have no issue coming on his platform, because I was like, man, I'm going to be arguing with Joe all the time, because I can be honest, I am more biased pro-police. But I think Joe realized, well, Seth calls out some bad stuff too. And we started understanding, man, we really agree on more than we disagree. And Joe will send me a video and you know, we'll talk about it or whatever. And I'll be like, man, you know, Jay, you'll see, I'll put videos and stuff and I'll tell people, man, hey, the cops messed up on this one. My buddy's a detective with Phoenix. He sent me something one day and I go, oh, y'all messed up. He goes, oh, no. And I said, well, nah, that shit looks bad and y'all messed up. Watch. So Joe, thank you, man. You know, I do think that you're a fair brother for the most part. Yeah.
Thanks, Dad. I appreciate that, man. A lot of people don't understand that. Even when I first joined, my own family was like, oh, you one of them now? I was like, yo, dude, you rather have me in the hood than Pantaleo. Yo, you rather have me in the hood than Derek Chauvin. Like, people don't understand that concept.
That's
rather
crazy to me.
To the community, and they're not afraid of the community. People don't understand that concept. I do a lot of training, right? I do a lot of speeches at high schools, and I'm encouraging young folks, get in the police department. You want to change? Become the change. Become a part of that change. Join. People don't think that's a solution. People don't think that's a real solution. You know, I'm constantly doing for my community. We put together a fundraiser and gave back to a poor community school who was having problems with their buses.
Hey.
We repair every week, every month, once a month. We're doing food drives for the homeless. So
when I saw that brother Jay doing that turkey drive or whatever,
yeah.
I said, you know what? I might go back and forth with this dude, but anybody who is putting into the community, I can rock with you even if we have differences. Because I think what happens, and obviously I probably get this more, like people will come at me, oh, how can you have, I saw in there, how can you have a discussion with Said? He's so biased and all that. I will invite anybody to see their body of work. I mean, I put in work in this community. I'm getting the poor. I was telling Joe how when the schools were open, how I would go mentor with these young men and young women. And there are these schools in California, man, everybody there's on probation. So everybody is considered problematic. And I would go every week, hang out with these kids. I enjoy it because I believe that's like community work. So when I take these stances on things I believe, it's not me just standing on, I think the cops are above reproach and this and that. If it's wrong, it's wrong. If it's right, it's right. But I'm about the people, taking care of the community, resources. So when I saw Joe doing that, I said, man, I'll always be able to rock with this dude. He's trying to better his community.
Real quick, guys, people want to know why Joe, you and Said left policing.
I said this before, and I'll say it again. I got pissed off because I seen this officer hit this kid with handcuffs. So I pretty much reported it. And I caught a lot of heat reporting this incident. I mean, a lot of heat. So at the time, police work was really not good for me. So one of my boys who was in my precinct, he left the police department. He did international policing. He was in Iraq, but we kept in contact. And the night that I went home, and I was just so frustrated with the process of, yo, you can't, you're part of one of us. Yo, you can't be doing what you did, because I kind of pulled the officer off the kid because he's in handcuffs. And by fair, check it out. An officer called for assistance, right? And he dropped his radio, but he didn't give a location. So you got everybody running around looking for this officer, right? So you had some really good people, and I'm telling y'all, this is in the hood. People in the hood called on the phone and said, you got this officer behind this location, and this is where he's at, and he's getting his ass whipped. So somebody better show up. So I was in the area searching, and when radio dispatch came and said, look, over here, I came around the corner. This kid was sitting on the officer's chest, and he was just tagging him. He was just tagged. Yo, the officer was getting tagged, right? So as I started running towards this incident, the guy got up because he heard it was in a fall, so you heard leaves. So you hear me running towards it. So he turned around, and he looked at me, he said, yo, Joe, I'm giving up, bro. Don't hit me. Please don't hit me. He got down he proned out before I got to him. I grabbed his arms, cuffed him, got on the radio and told him, look, I located him. He's 10-4. This is the location. I'm going to need a transport for the prisoner. Yo, and when I tell you, like, this dude got up off the ground, he went to, I was like, and I'm trying to protect this kid from getting his ass beat. And the guy was he was in cuffs already. I already cuffed him. So you got me trying to middleman step in between this officer because he was catching. And when I got there, he was sitting on there. He had little knots on his face, so, and he was one of those officers that, and I'm quite sure y'all worked with officers like this. If they're on scene, they actually make it worse. They got the big chest. You're gonna do what I say. Shut up. This and that. I mean, so I kind of, this was going to happen eventually because this guy worked out of my precinct, and I've crossed his path a few times. So I'd be like, So I've got this kid in cuffs, and I'm trying to step in between him and the officer who's trying to get at him because he just got his ass whipped. And when people got there, a lot of officers was like, yo, you're supposed to let him have that. He got his ass whipped. I said, yo, dude, he's in cuffs. Like, yo, the dude is like, I was really like, yo, he's in cuffs. I was like, you know what? And everybody got mad at me at the scene. I said, uncuff his ass and let him get him a fair one. And you should have seen the backlash that I got. When I went back to everybody was like, yo, Joe don't got your back. And I was sitting there like, he was in cuffs. Like, what do you want me to let this kid get beat up in cuffs? So I was frustrated on the backlash, and I was getting to it. So make a long story short, I get home, my boy sends me an email explaining the international police program. He says you can make 6 figures because cops in the 90s was making 27,000. It was real corny money back then. And he was like, yo, you can make 6 figures. You hold all the qualifications. So I signed up to become international police instructor advisor. And I went down to DC. I trained for a amount of time. And then I got shipped to Afghanistan to build police programs. And then when I came back, I just signed up as an instructor because I had certifications. And I just started doing instructor work. So that was why I left, because it wasn't friendly back then, because you got to remember when I started, it was in the 90s, to actually step up and say something against another officer. Like it's a lot of retaliation that goes on. So that was pretty much why I bailed from the job, because of the retaliation. I had an out, I had all the certifications. I went over to Afghanistan as an international police advisor instructor and been part of the police program.
Yeah, for me, I was in a pretty good use of force in 2007. It messed my neck and stuff up with this guy. Came back to duty, and then in 2013, I was in a pursuit, and I got hit by a truck. So, it's just bad luck. So I was on light duty for a bit, came back, and then I was having some back issues and stuff. And then in the end of 2017, man, I got into we drive the LPRs. I don't know if you guys have those in your states. They read the license plates.
Oh, okay.
So this I'm working graveyard in this Honda. I mean, the Honda Accords are. What do I think of Dorner? I'll talk about that later because that affected my department directly. This Honda Accord drives past me. The thing goes off. It's a G ride. I flip around. The car hauls ass. The guy's foot bail, right? I get out the foot bail after the guys, man. I start chasing him and my legs give out. And I'm like, whoa. You know, like my legs just give out. And so I remember the sergeant coming up. You know, we're processing the car, waiting for the tow. And he's like, whoa, said, I go, man, Sarge, I think I gotta get back in shape, man. I couldn't catch these guys. And you know, he kind of laughed, like, cause he was like, said, you didn't catch them? I was like, man, no, my legs, right? And then, man, Joe, I was in the shower, Jay, one day, and then my legs gave out. And I'm like, there's something like this, like, so obviously nerve issues. So, man, they put me on light duty. I go through all these tests, all that. One doctor was like, man, this guy can work, right? So they send me back to work. I'm at work, or I'm sleeping here, and I get a call from the sergeant. So I'm thinking I messed up the night before, Joe. I'm like, man, what did I do? They're like, you cannot show up to work. I'm like, what? They're like, hey, we got a letter here that you can't work. You're to be retired immediately. And I'm like, no, you just saw me at work last night. And they go, yeah, but this letter here says that we can't allow you to work because there's something with your back, man. So I came in the next day. They sent me over to personnel, and I was forced to retire in 2 weeks.
Wow.
Because of something that they saw on an MRI, which I personally think was a little suspect. But yeah, it happened as simple as that. We see something, we think it's problematic, and they wanted to get me off the books because of liability.
Did they give you full retirement?
Yeah, I get full retirement.
Oh, yo, that's good then.
Bro, why you think I'm sitting at home? Why do you think I've been sitting at home for the last 4 years? I get 50% of my top step salary, and it's non-taxable. So yeah, I'm doing okay.
Good. That's good. I was thinking you have the hell of a remote at-home job. Every time I look at you, I was like, damn, Seth is fucking home. He's like all day long, he's on live. I'm like, yo, this dude is stay on live. I said he must have had a remote job.
You know, and I made some good investments and some good choices.
That is always on live, all hours.
Jay, like, wait, Sad's on live again? Like, why ain't he at work, right?
What's Sad doing that I'm not doing right?
Oh,
That's what I was thinking. I was like, when we get a little close, I'm asking yo, put me down. I was like, yo, this guy stays on live. We can do a live, a 3-hour live. I can go eat dinner, and then I look at my phone and like Sed's back on live. I'll be like, then he's with Mitch. That should be going for hours.
Oh man,
I had a long conversation with Mitch. It was after hearing him on live. Well, him and Tatum go back and forth, but
Wasn't it in me when he provided the bad statistics?
Yeah. I got cut in 2 minutes. I was like, wait. But I thought I was gonna get one thing out of the conversation, but we spoke offline, and it was really good. It was awesome. We spoke for like about an hour. He's a good guy, you know. It's, you know, some views, like I said, I see where he comes from. Some things, obviously, like doing what I do, see differently. I think, like, people think somehow like you become a police officer, like you know, you're that's it, you crossed over, or you're not. Like, I'm like, bro, I became a police officer at 23. The majority of the time, like, I'm not working, you know, in my job. I've always been about the community. I've been volunteering since college, even before then. Matter of fact, I became a police officer in the PAL boxing program. They were like, yo, you could travel boxing. I said, where do I sign up?
Oh,
And
they still got PAL?
see, that's the thing in New York, and this is what all these people want to fight about, these activists and stuff. And listen, I'm all for it, but in New York City, they cut the PAL program for boxing, and they picked it up for like chess and other things, and which is nonsense, because don't reach out at-risk kids.
No.
Now, I never was an at-risk kid. Of course, I knew bad people. I knew, you know, good kids, whatever. Was always in the middle. Yeah, I won't hang out in this circumstance because, God forbid, if it goes south, no.
Right.
You know what I mean? Not like I said, I ain't hosing. I'm not holding no. No,
like people don't understand that, bro. People don't understand. All because you live in that environment doesn't mean that you are a part of everything that goes on in that environment.
Yeah,
like,
but
people just don't understand that, and it's hard to get people from the outside of that community to understand it. I used to have these conversations all the time with a lot of cops, bro. Like, not everybody in a poor community is criminals, because we have a high level of crime that attaches the poor community. Stop thinking everybody in here is damn criminals. And people, it's hard. Yeah. It's hard. And I had one white guy. He was just like, yo, I never had nobody explain it that way. The police department don't explain it that way. The police department, they tell you the worst case scenario. Go home, stay alive. You want to go home every night, stay alive. But they're not giving you the actual cultural training that you need to understand that. It was amazing. Like I said before, as soon as shit got really tight, I signed up for international policing, went down to DC. You wouldn't be surprised of how much training they gave me about cultural training. Oh, you can't sit with your feet crossed. You know how you see people sit with their feet crossed and your shoes facing to the side? In that culture, if you show them the bottom of your feet, that's a huge sign of disrespect. Bro. Like, it was just amazing to see how much time, right, that they spent on not trying to offend their culture. And then we get very little bit of cultural diversity training. I remember cultural diversity training. You had a black 3-star come in. He says, look, it's mandated that we give cultural diversity training. You need to treat people like you want to be treated. Sign the attendance sheet. Be safe, gentlemen. Like, and I'm sitting here like, this really, like, now you wonder why we got the problems we have? Like, you got to be serious about understanding the problems so you can address those problems. And law enforcement haven't been that serious. Not all, but there is a large portion of departments that don't even acknowledge. They think it's the community's fault. Just do it, we wouldn't have these problems. Well, how is that working, huh? The community is not doing what you say. So we got to be a little bit more adaptive to try to figure out what this problem is. How do we really bridge this gap?
Like New York is, you know, is always going to have problems, you know, but I think I remember when I came in 2008, there was a decent amount of definitely cultural diversity, as I know that it definitely improves from what it was before. And even now, I see it more and more. Of course, are there problems? Yes. Do I think totally it's moving forward? I do. Do I see some other issues? Absolutely. But I do think, honestly, that we're getting somewhere better. I don't know, like I said, how it is in every single department. I was talking to I'm not even gonna say the police department or the town, but like I said, I came in through PAL, and then when the PAL dropped the program, right, that people don't even know. Like this is, I would be up in arms. They dropped the program, so they dropped all these kids from a free program. A retired sergeant by the name of Patty Russo started a nonprofit called NYC Cops and Kids. We got 3 gyms. We have 3 Olympians that made it out. We got kids getting jobs. Like we have tutoring. I mean, really saves kids' lives. Like literally saved kids' lives and made them more productive in the community and bring cops to interact with kids. Like it's and vice versa. So the community gets one way of interacting with police officers out of the uniform. You know, I used to get in the ring, so you know they could take their shots at me and don't worry about
when
not getting arrested. But you know, and vice versa. But what and when I talk to other, like, I guess some departments, a lot of departments do, you know, different things for community, but I talk to some places and they're like, oh, well, how do we do programs like this? And they're just so far behind. Like, oh, well, you know, is that, you know, sometimes is that on our time, or who's going to fund that, or who's like, I really think that's a great deterrent to crime, because really you're giving people something to do. You're helping them. Like we do resume builds. Like kids don't come in perfect. That's what you want. You want at-risk kids involved with police officers.
Thank you, man.
You know, vice versa, because you really see the human in everybody, and you want the help. I've known kids that have, you know, did some bad things as juvenile, stabbings or whatever. And say one kid, his family left him. His mom and dad left him. He's been arrested tons of times. Kid's EMT now. I mean, he's been like, he was 17 with no high school credits. He graduated. He's productive member of society. But if you looked at his arrest record previously, he was a juvenile. I mean, he was a menace. Like I mean, to me, that's greater than any reward, because we are the community. So, you know, when people say things, oh, they're cooning and this and that, I mean, listen, I don't need to boast about my community record because there's no activists out there.
Jay, the same people saying that we're cooning won't go spend the same time that with these kids because they scared of them. I used to do the same thing, man. Joe, I used to go wrestle with these kids. I'd show up. I showed up one day, Joe, and Jay, and they're like, "Oh man, Sid, we gonna kick your ass today." And I was like, "What?" They're like, "You ain't in uniform? Oh, we kicking your ass because you ain't." They were like, "You ain't strapped." So it's funny. I lift up my shirt and I said, "Well, I'm always strapped." And they started laughing. And I go, "But for you guys, I'm gonna do y'all a favor. I'm gonna go put it in the car today." And so I go put all my stuff. I had a tie and stuff on. I take my tie off. And I come in and I'm in a classroom. They start moving all the desks around. So they move the desks all to one side of the classroom. And it's about 15 kids and they all get in a line and they're all chomping at their bit to come at me. And I said, okay, we're going to keep this fun. And I said, but if you feel that you're about to pass out or something is about to be broken, tap me. So the first kid, this little white dude, he rushes me, man. I fall back into the desk. Like, Joe, he's going at me really hard, right? And I catch him and I start choking him out. And he won't tap though. Then he starts tapping, but I hold it long enough to let him know, bruh. I let him go, and all the rest of the kids were kind of like, officer said ain't no joke. And so the biggest kid in the class, because this kid was 19 years old and he's like 6'4".
Right.
Wow.
Got on him, wrapped him up, but it was all fun. But after that day, though, they were like, man, we got a different appreciation for you. But I loved it, man, because the respect that you got from the kids being able to, you know, wrestle around and get that understanding. That's when people ask me about the job, that's what I miss, man. I miss that portion of being able to go in uniform. I miss, being able to go to uniform and do these type of things, with the kids. So
Yeah, somebody said, check this out, but it doesn't always work. People usually end up back into their old ways. And I'm going to say it's not 100%, and you can't save every kid, but I think it's more positive than negative, because not every kid that is in that type of environment is always going to go wrong or go back to doing wrong things. Or because you live in that certain environment doesn't mean you have to participate in it. I grew up in a projects. My parents was on drugs. Like I never used drugs a day in my life. Like, because I'm there doesn't mean I have to be there doing the bad element things that the environment had in it. So I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say, because one day I was chasing this kid, right? He was on the corner. He was just a nickel and dimer. I watched him. He kept going back and forth to the car. You could see the transaction. I would have a unit stop the vehicle and then make the arrest from them buying. And then so I already knew that the probability of him having some drugs on him was pretty high. So I chased him. As soon as I pulled up, he was like, "Yo, what's up, Joe?" I was like, "Nah, let me talk to you." Right? You see you already know it's about that. I said, "Yo, dude, you're about to run. Go ahead. I'm faster than you." Right? Because, I was fast. So I was a little cocky with the shit. So he takes off. He's 60 years old. I'm chasing him. We may went 2 blocks. Right? But you got a 60-year-old who's smoking weed and drinking 40s. Like, that little burst is not going to last that long. So I figured, like, if I could just keep him in sight for 2 blocks, I'm going to get him. And he threw a bag of drugs. I scooped it up. I actually ended up catching him, put him in my unit and was taking him back. And I started to mentor him, started talking, "Yo, what are you doing, man?" He's like, "What you talking about, man?" He said, "You don't understand my lifestyle." He's like, "You had a silver spoon in your mouth. You had both parents." Right? And I was like, okay. I said, "Dude, first of all, you're wrong. I grew up in the projects. Both my parents was on drugs. Didn't know my father. Mother went to prison for taking someone's life at 12 years old." And he turned around, he looked at me, he said, "How you get that job?" And that was exactly that's what he said. He said, "How you get that job?" I was like, "What you mean? Like, you can get the job too. Like, what are you talking about?" And he was like, I said, "Yo, where's your father?" He said, "My father was an absentee dad like yours." I said, "Where your mom's?" He's like, "I'm staying with my aunt because I don't know where my mother's at." And he was like,
Wow.
"So how you doing in school?" He's like, I said, "Yo, check it out. This is what I'm going to do, right?" I said, "I'm going to come check on you, right?" I said, "I'm going to give you a chance." I said, he only had maybe 6 to 8 rocks on him, right? Wasn't a lot, but to him, it was a lot. I said, "This is what I'm going to do." I said, "I'm going to come check on you because juvenile case, I know in your jurisdiction, they take forever to come on a document. Juveniles is like the worst to deal with because this process is so slow." So he was like, I said, "I'm going to make a deal with you." I said, "If you do good in school, and I'm going to come check on you. Well, by the time we get to court, I'm going to tell the judge that I kind of big brothered you. I'm going to bring your report card, the whole 9. I'm going to be an advocate for you. And I'm going to come check on you." I said, "But you're going to have to stay off the streets." I said, "You have to say," I said, "What about food?" I said, "What about food? Do you have a problem getting food?" No, my aunt cooked." I said, "All right, so you have a problem getting clothes?" He was like, "No." I said, "What you doing? Like, what are you doing? You got the basics. Like, that's all I needed. You got the basics." I said, "You got food and she rocking clothes. What happened is, you know how it is. He didn't have the extras. You know what I mean? The aunt was providing the shelter. She was providing the food. So I said, you said 2 minutes?
I got to go. So I just want to say thank you,
All
guys.
right.
Yeah, I got to head out and take care of something.
Thanks, man.
Hey, Jake, good seeing you again. Hey,
Always.
maybe you can bring Mitch back and teach him a couple of things. I'm actually, because, I'm going to draw him some pictures and some boxes and hope that he can compliment. I'm going to take him back to Police 101 because I see he's got a lot to learn.
Before you leave, I'm going to just sum this all. When it was all said and done, I did check on him. I went to the school, I went to his aunt's house. By the time we went to court, this kid went to school. He wasn't a dumb kid. It was a product of the environment, and he just got sucked in. I brought the report card to the judge. He literally dismissed it And this kid, actually, I've never seen him back on the block again. And I told him, I said, yo, if you ever need me, come, you got somebody that's going to look out for you. And just because I was so relatable to him, I think I sparked him like, yo, you don't have to do this. Because a lot of kids in that environment believes, yo, this is the hand I dealt with. I just need to rock it the best way I know how. And I was just showing like, yo, there's other ways you can get out of this. And that kid never got in any more trouble from that point on. So I was like, yo, how he invited me to his graduation. Like it was a really good story to show how, yo, a lot of these kids, man, because they live in that environment, don't just count them out. Don't just count them out because of the circumstances. I know you got to go, Seth, man. I just wanted to tell you that because I knew you was leaving. Go ahead.
I appreciate you, brothers, man. It's always fun. We'll do it again next Sunday, right?
Yeah, next Sunday.
All right, Jay, good seeing you.
Likewise, man. Yeah, man. Here you got the moves. I'm watching. Jitsu, you know, we gotta link up one day.
Absolutely. I see you doing all that fitness and training. That's what I said. And I told Joe earlier, I started backing off my stance a lot because I realized I've been applying my training thinking all officers have the same type of training, even all the stuff that I do personally, even with the resources that are allotted at my department. Because even, when I was talking with Tatum, the department that Tatum worked for is twice the size of the police department that I work for. However, we got twice the amount of training because I was telling him how much we train and stuff like that. He's like, you guys train that much? Like, yeah, before I go, so think of this. When I was on patrol, that I had personally in my car, I had my own taser, right? I had, we call them pumpkin guns. They look like shotguns, but they shoot the beanbags. So I had taser. And then because I was on the riot team, I had the 40 millimeter as well. So if I showed up on the scene, like, the one we're kind of talking about in Tennessee and things like that, I automatically, if it's just one or two officers, I have a lot of resources there just with me with one unit to where some other department might not have a 40 or they, someone on the SWAT team may only carry that. So now they're waiting 30, 40 minutes for that to come. I show up and I got everything. So I think a lot that we talk about is it comes down to training, honestly, and maybe we should have another live just based on how, maybe what we can do as far as training. And when we talk about defunding the police and all that, we realize that more departments need more funding. I mean, Jay is on the largest department on earth. So, it's probably, I don't know how the funding and stuff there, is different, but being here, here in California, we have a lot more resources than a lot of other departments. So
I'll tell you what, sometimes having a bigger department, you get less training. Training, I think, is terrible.
But let's link up again, fellas, man, and have a discussion, man. God bless you guys and bless everyone in the chat, man. It's always a pleasure, even if it gets a little spicy back and forth. Like Joe and I said, man, the whole thing after these discussions is even if we don't agree, we should come to some level of understanding or agreement is that there may be improvements on one side or the other. So God bless you guys. Good night.
All right. Thanks. So that's the thing, man. Like, we got to really understand the issues and have talk to them. I just wish, right, people, the community was more open to understanding the solutions to it. And
yeah,
it just hurts, right, to see the direction. Like, we're not gaining any leverage on y'all did it. I've seen incidents where people will send me and I go, nah, his actions was consistent with how his training was, right? And because I'm a big vocal on bad policing, so when the officer's not consistent, I'm out forefront telling you, nah, that's not how we're trained to do. We need to hold them accountable. So you see that more, and then when you see me say, his training is pretty consistent with policy and procedures, then it's like, oh, you flip-flopping. I was like, you don't understand the platform if you believe that. So
yes, they don't, because that's the same way I am. Like, I love being a police officer. Do I love everything? Do I agree with everything? No, but the fact that I was given a platform to help people and to make a difference matters, But do I agree with everything that happens? in policing across the 50 states? No. Do I agree with certain situations? No. Do I agree with some? Yeah. You know, and
Yeah, I just people paint everything with a broad brush. Either way, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
some cops are just all, you know, it's like all blue, you know, and some people are just like, oh, it's them versus them. Once again, I became a police officer at 23. You know,
23?
yeah, 23. I became a police officer. You know, I had interactions as a kid with police. Nothing crazy negative, but you know, some weren't that great. Some were positive. You know, even on the police force, some positive, some negative. But the point of the matter is, like, I, I'm in the community. I'm a black man. I'm a black Hispanic man. Like that's not take off my uniform. You know what I mean? And some people lose sight of that. Like it's just it boggles, you know, my mind. You know, it's
Yeah. Hey Jay, did you see that? I think it's a documentary about damn, what the hell is it? Cops and robbers story. It was about a chief. His name is was it Chris? I think it was. He came up in the NYPD, and
Corey Pegues.
yeah, yes, that's it. Did you see that documentary?
I did not see his documentary.
What do you know about that? Because that's an amazing story, bro. That's an amazing story. When I saw that, I was like, "Yo, this definitely a guy from the neighborhood."
I didn't I didn't see it. I actually want to see it. I'll definitely get back to you on what I think about it. But yeah, I heard about it. It was making some waves, but I didn't see it. I just know that I worked under him for a little bit.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, as a police officer when I was a rookie, not too long. And there's a lot of mixed opinions about him. For some for a lot of good reasons, some for, you know, probably bad reasons or whatever too. So I gotta look at it, and I didn't see.
That's crazy. You worked under him.
Yeah, I did. I worked under him in the 6-7 precinct, East Flatbush, for a little bit. Maybe like not long, maybe like 9 months. But
damn. He made it all the way to assistant 2-star.
he was
He made it all the way to chief though, right?
nah, he was a deputy inspector.
Oh,
I
okay.
believe. Deputy. I mean, it's still high. You got police officer, sergeant, lieutenant, captain, you know, then deputy inspector.
Wow.
I believe. I could be wrong, but I believe he left as deputy inspector. But Joe, man, it's a pleasure, bro. Let me get out. I'm still on my unit.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
No, let's.
I really do, man. I really appreciate that, man.
I appreciate.
It's always. I love to talk to people from the community who police the community. They understand both sides, and I need more of that. I need more of that dialogue, so the community can see, yo, you got guys out here that's really putting in this work. So and they understand.
They're hard conversations, and people aren't ready to have hard conversations. I mean, love me, hate me. I'm all about it.
Right. Yeah, no doubt. I tell everybody, right? I get it. Stand up. You want to defend yourself. Just keep in mind, right? Don't push so hard that you become a hashtag. That officer has the home court advantage on that side of the road. We're here at 2022 now, and more officers are getting disciplined. More officers are getting suspended, convicted. They're getting charged. They're getting fired. Your win is in that courtroom, so please take your fight to that courtroom. Don't try to fight on that side of the road because it's a lose-lose on that side of the road. Make the people a little bit more even and take it to the courtroom. You guys be safe. Yo, Jay, thanks, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Nah, I appreciate having me.